And hello, everyone, and welcome. First of all, my name is Adam Keller. I'm a developer advocate on the container services team here at AWS. And welcome to Containers from the Couch. If you're not familiar with the show, basically we talk all things containers on AWS. And specifically for today, we are talking about a feature that we are releasing today that is really exciting, which is Windows support for AWS Fargate on Amazon ECS. So if you're not familiar with what Fargate is, I'm going to talk about it really quick. And then I have some really amazing folks that I'm going to bring in. And we're going to actually do a live demo. We're going to walk through how to deploy a serverless Windows container to AWS Fargate. And we're going to see it live, take live Q&A, and go through the whole process. So if you're not familiar with Fargate, let's just do a quick primer and just talk about why it's so popular with our customers and why so many folks are migrating their workloads to Fargate. So first and foremost, Fargate is a serverless. It's a serverless pay-as-you-go compute engine for running containers on AWS. And Fargate is supported with Amazon ECS and Amazon EKS as well. And for this particular release, this feature is supported with AWS Fargate on Amazon ECS. So just to be specific there. Very high level, when you think about running containers at scale, whether it's Windows as your operating system or Linux, you need an orchestrator. The job of the orchestrator is to essentially take a set of desired state commands via an API. You set your desired state generally in like a YAML or some sort of infrastructure as code utility. And it takes that API call and it takes the data and says, okay, we need to run N amount of containers across these types of hosts. So the job of the scheduler takes those containers, looks for compute. Okay, so compute in our cluster, this is where we have virtual machines in order for us to run those containers, and it schedules them onto those hosts. At scale, managing all of these hosts can be tedious because you have to think about patching, you have to think about rotating instances in and out as they fail, and you have to think about scaling your underlying infrastructure in and out as you scale your containers in and out. With Fargate, all of this goes away. So, for our Windows folks or Windows administrators, Windows developers, Patch Tuesday, this is not a thing you have to think about anymore. It's no longer a responsibility of yours. And this falls under that shared responsibility model. So AWS is managing the underlying host that your containers run on, and you just focus on running your containers. So with all that said, I'm going to bring in some folks who are really amazing. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and then we're going to get right into the live demo. And please, if you have any questions as we're going through this, reach out in the chat, and we're going to answer those questions live. So I'm going to start with Saloni, who is the PM for Fargate. Actually, I'm going to stop. Saloni, why don't you introduce yourself, say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Saloni Sonpa. I'm the product manager for Fargate, and also the one who's been working on the Fargate Windows containers release. So I'm excited for you guys to try it out and excited to show you the demo.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have Sandeep. Sandeep, say hello.
Hi, everyone. This is Sandeep Indraganti. I'm a senior SDE Windows containers at Amazon AWS.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Marcio.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcio Morales. I work as a specialist solution architect for Microsoft workloads on AWS.
Awesome. So, I want to just start with, Saloni, if you could just talk a little bit about, I know that a lot of customers were asking for this feature. I guess what are some of the things that customers were looking for? What are some of their pain points that this will address, as they look into using this to run their containers?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, you started us off on a really good note. You talked about Patch Tuesday. That's something that comes up all the time. We were on a customer call yesterday who were talking about how Army patching was a pain for them and how they had to actually go through the cycle and how it was delaying their process by 2 weeks to get to an up-to-date Army and up-to-date underlying infrastructure. And that's just one example. We've heard so many of these where Army patching is a pain point. Customers want to run legacy applications which are .NET based but can't move to .NET Core, and don't want to manage the infrastructure. That's also when they want to move to Fargate. Some customers want to go all in on Fargate, and they have to keep their EC2 instances running alongside just because they have to run these Windows applications. So while Windows applications are something that they are running, we want to make sure that we can take some of the operational heavy lifting away from them and make sure the model of how they pay for it also is simpler. Now they don't have to worry about idle instances, provisioning instances, scaling them, and instead just pay for the tasks and pay for the vCPU and memory they request for their tasks. We will scale as and when their need increases. And also we will take care of the underlying infrastructure and make sure that it's up to date and it's secure by design, and it's also isolated in a fashion that they don't have to worry about any container breakouts. So all of that is what we expect Fargate support to bring for Windows containers. And I'm so excited for our ECS Fargate customers to try this out.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about all of the work that goes into managing the underlying servers, and frankly, I think we announced Fargate. Saloni, correct me if I'm wrong. 2017, right? I think we announced Fargate, and I remember at that time I was an AWS customer at the time. I wasn't even working here yet, and it was so exciting because look, I've in my time as working in operations, DevOps as a developer, I've dealt with the patching and managing of the underlying hosts, and it is such a pain. So if we can, for me, if I can offload that work to someone else and not have to think about it, that's what I want to do. Because ultimately, I don't want to worry about that. I want to worry about as the least amount of things as possible. So, Marcio, what do you say we get right into the demo, and maybe you show us, how to get a task deployed? What do you say?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. So in this demonstration, Eden, what I'm going to cover is first create a Fargate cluster. Then we're going to create a task definition for a Windows container. Then we're going to run this task definition as a standalone task, and then create an ECS service to launch and manage those tasks. All right. So I'm going to use the console here to go through this demonstration.
And hey, Marcio, can we zoom in a couple notches, please?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go a couple more. Perfect.
All
and
right.
If anyone in the audience has an issue, just let me know.
Okay. So on the Amazon ECS console, you have clusters, right? And then once you click in clusters, you're going to see create cluster, right? So when you are creating a Fargate cluster, it doesn't mean there is no EC2 being deployed for you on your account, right? So you are going to select network only to create an ECS cluster. Once you select that, super easy. You can just specify the name of the cluster. So let's say containers
And
from
while you're doing that, just really quick, for those who maybe aren't super familiar with ECS, with Amazon ECS, when you think about a cluster is literally just a logical namespace to group your tasks and services. You don't have to think about patching, upgrading, managing anything at the cluster control plane level. It's all fully managed. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah. So in the console, you have the option to create a new VPC, or you can use your existing VPC with all the routers you have to launch those tasks, right? So in my scenario here, I'm going to use an existing VPC, and you can enable containerized sites, which I'm going to cover by the end on how to see metrics of those tasks, right? And I'm going to click create. So cluster created, right? Now, my next step is to create a task definition using a vanilla Windows container image. So when you click here in task definition and you click create new task, you can specify this is a task that's going to be deployed on a Fargate environment or EC2 environment. In our case, Fargate, okay? And now it's time to specify a name. So let's say containers from the couch, test 01, right? You can select a task role. So let's say your Windows container task is going to assume IAM role to access a specific AWS services. So here is the option you have to specify the IAM role, right? The task role, sorry. And now it's time, and this is the new, right? Windows Server 2019. So we used to have only Linux, now we have Windows Server. And as you can see, there are two different options of Windows Server 2019 Core and Full, right? So technically, there is no difference between running your Windows container on a 2019 Core or Full. However, for customers to feel more comfortable and making sure their task, their application, they are going to through the containerization path runs exactly on the same Windows OS installation they have on-prem or in any other cloud, we offer those two options for them, right? However, it's important to understand that for a Fargate, we're not going to have access to underlying host. So there is no connection through RDP, WMI, or PowerShell. It's just a matter of selecting a Windows server that match your existing OS installation on-prem or any other virtual machine, but this does not affect how the container is going to work, right?
So the idea here is, just to support customers as they're coming in, if they want to migrate to Fargate, we're going to give you both options. The ideal option, if you you're not running this on a Windows Server 2019 Full, is to use Core, right? Like you should use Core. That should be your primary use. But for migration use cases, you can use Full. You're not getting access to the host. That's that shared responsibility model with Fargate. We don't, AWS manages the underlying host, so you don't access it. You don't touch it. We manage that.
Correct.
Cool.
So we are going to touch base on it in a second because it's important when you are creating your task definition and specifying the operation system family. We'll launch this task and you need to specify exactly the same operation system family. So in this specific use case, I'm going to create a task definition to run on a Windows Server 2019 Core, okay? And now I'm going to specify the task size. Doesn't mean is the container amount of CPU and memory the container is going to use, but this is the task, which can be shared between different containers within the same task, okay? So what I'm going to use here is 2 gigabytes of memory and 1 vCPU. And I think this is brilliant, especially when you are thinking about running .NET applications or Windows applications when you used to use 4 vCPUs, 80 gigabytes of RAM as those default virtual machines configuration. Now you have the option to really use only the resources your app needs, right? Great. Now we are going to create the container definition. And the container definition is all about what is the image you are going to use, right? What is the part this container is going to listen? So let's say Windows IIS. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use a public Windows container image from a Microsoft repository called MCR. And it's very important that when you specify the image, that image tag match exactly the same operation system family. So we were talking about Windows Server 2019, right? So the Windows Server 2019, when running a Windows container, it means the base image used to be LTSC 2019. So if you are planning to use like ASP.NET framework, make sure this framework has also the tag LTSC 2019. So you are going to match exactly the Windows image within the operational system. Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Marcio, really quick? Just could you give me maybe like a high level, like what are some common workloads that you see folks in the Microsoft world migrating over to ECS? Like and Fargate, what would be some good use cases?
I think one great use case is long-term workloads, applications like ASP.NET applications, right? Let's say you have an internal web application based on ASP.NET, and this is a great use case for Windows Container. Another great use case is Windows Service. Let's say a service that does a kind of a pooling to another application to consume some data from a queue, something like that. It's another great example. But not only that, I would say, Adam, .NET is the most common use case, but you can run a lot of other frameworks on top of Windows, right? Like Golang, Python, all this kind of thing. While not that common, but it's possible as well, right?
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Sure. So now we are going to specify the amount of memory this container is going to consume from the task. So remember, my task has 2 GB of memory. So I'm going to give this container 1 GB of memory. And as it's a vanilla IaaS is a web service, right, on a Windows server. So I'm going to specify port 80. You have some options here, like let's say you want to bootstrap your container and change something in the fly during the launching of the container. You can do so, right, through endpoints and commands here. You have all other options, like if you want to use environment variables, this kind of thing for your application that requires something like that, right? And here is a great option, like automatically and by default, auto-configure CloudWatch logs is enabled. So let's say you prepared your Windows container image to send logs to CloudWatch logs, or you prepare your app to send logs, we can capture all those logs automatically and send it to CloudWatch logs stream, right?
So that's another really big deal right there. When you think about it, log management, aggregation, all this, just it's all here.
Yes.
Managed, right? Like that's really nice. That saves a lot of time from a management perspective.
Correct.
It's awesome.
So I'm gonna click add. So I have my container here, only one container within this task, right? I can also specify how much of CPU allocation I'm gonna give to this task, right?
So Marcio, one thing to call out is for Windows, with Fargate, our smallest size is going to be 1 vCPU and 2 GB like you have. And any higher side will be supported with this launch.
Perfect. And I'm gonna click create my task definition. Great. As you can see, I automatically create a log group on CloudWatch, right? Now let's launch this Windows container. So the first thing I'm gonna do is like a standalone task. So just click action and run the task. So let's specify the launch type. So for Windows, starting today, Fargate, right? And remember the operational system family, it needs to match exactly the one we specified when you created a task. So here is an example. If I select Windows Server 2019 full, I'm gonna receive an error like, hey, isn't the same Windows operation system family you select when you created a task definition, right? So I need to select core. And then the number of tests, how many tests you wanna run? Just one for this an example here. And the VPC. Also, a good call out here is that your VPC must have either a public or a subnet with outbound internet connection. Why? Let's say you are, like in an example, I'm gonna pull an image from an external repository. So it needs to have outbound network connectivity with the internet, okay? I'm gonna select, in my case, the public subnet for this specific standalone task and the security group. So I'm gonna allow port 80 from the internet from anywhere. And I'm gonna assign a public IP for this standalone task and click run task.
And a question came into chat, so I just want to bring it up. Maybe Saloni or Sandeep, one of you can take this. But question from one of our container heroes. Hey Vlad, will I be able to use Fargate Spot with Windows containers?
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam, we have thought about Spot support, but like Marcio was mentioning, a lot of the Windows workloads are long running. And so to sort of address that steady state usage, we are bringing compute savings plans. We are extending it to Windows containers with Fargate, and you'll be able to get 25 to 50% discounts with compute savings plans for your long running web services like this one, or any steady state usage that your applications bring. So we've evaluated some of the workloads that run with Windows and brought the discounts to address those use cases.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. And then, while we're here, just really quick, another great question about ECS exec. So do we have any plans to integrate ECS exec with this service?
Sandeep, you're muted. Sorry.
Oh, you're muted. The famous mute. You're mute. There you go.
Yep, that's going to be a follow-up. So definitely, yes, we feel the importance of the ECS exec on Fargate, and that's what we are following up. So you'll pretty soon see that feature with Fargate.
Perfect. So keep an eye on our roadmap. I'll share a link to the roadmap. I know Vlad, you know about it, but for those who don't, we have a public roadmap where you'll be able to track all of the features that we're working on, as well as submit feature requests or issues of your own that that matter to you. So I'll share that in just a moment. So thank you, Marcio. Continue.
All right. So I just want to explain, I think this is a very important step to understand what's happening behind the scenes, right? So when you launch your task, under the hood, we are launching our Fargate environment. And then the Fargate and the container runtime is going to pull the image from a container repository and extract it to the disk. So Windows images usually is larger than Linux image, so it takes time. It really depends of the size of our container image and how much layers this image had. So in this specific example, I just launched a basic IAS, which for this an example already have the same task with a different name running the same image. So let's see the result right here. Let me just open this guy here. Oops, I'm sorry. This is the tab. So let me list all my tasks here. Okay, I used my previous cluster. Sorry about that. It's this one here. Okay. So this is my task list. And let's just grab one task which has the same exactly image. So
and in a cluster, I could run, I could have EC2 instances, like Windows EC2 instances to run some, and Fargate, right? I could mix my Windows, Fargate, and EC2 tasks in the same cluster as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Cool. So as you can see, this is the full web page from our IaaS web services. So it's running on Windows. Okay. So this is a standalone test we just launched. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an ECS service to manage those tests. Let's say scale out, scale in, and publish it through a network load balancer or an application load balancer, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm back to my cluster.
And that task you just showed, that is a Windows container running on Windows Fargate.
Correct. No EC2, no heavy lift anymore.
Super
right?
dope.
So let's.
Exciting.
Oh yeah, and let's click on services and create a service, right? So I already have one, but let's create one from the scratch. So again, you need to specify the launch type, in our case, Fargate, and the same operational system family. So I created it on core. I can specify my task definition here, right? Let me just get this one here. I have an example. All right, this one here. Oops, this one here. Where is my, okay. And then what's the name of the service? Let's say containers from the couch service 01, right? And the number of tasks. This means how many Windows task definition, Windows tasks is going to be part of this service, right? So in my example, 2. And then you can click next. And again, you can reuse an existing VPC, right? So one that I already have. And this is the difference for this an example. The previous an example, I exposed my task directly to the internet with a public IP. Right now, I want to protect this environment. So I'm going to launch those on a private subnet and then expose through a network load balancer, right? And I'm going to disable the auto-assign public IP. I can specify an existing security group, right? But I'm going to create a new one here. And then you can also specify the Elastic Load Balancer type you want to use, application load balancer or network load balancer or classic load balancer. So I'm going to use a network load balancer, an existing one because I already have, right? And you can specify the listening port that I also have, but you can create through this wizard right here. And it's a layer 4 load balancer. So we are saying the health check is going to happen on the TCP, right? And click next. And now you can also set up this outscaling for your Windows Fargate task. So let's say the minimum of tasks to run on the service is going to be 2, but the maximum, let's say 5. And the scale out is going to happen for the time, let's say my average CPU utilization is above 50%, as an example, right?
And so you're setting up service auto scaling right now, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
You know, and so previous to Fargate, right? If you're managing EC2 in your cluster, you have to think about when you want to set up auto scaling for your tasks, you'd also have to think about how to scale your EC2 instances as your tasks scale out. That's a real pain. So again, just another benefit of Fargate is I no longer have to think about, oh shoot, how do I scale my underlying virtual machines? Because it's all fully managed. I don't have to worry about that. I'm just worried about my container, my application, and my task, and what does it take for that to scale? So all of a sudden you're, all these these management points, it really just boils down to one, and that's your code.
Correct.
Exactly. It's so much easier now, and you can scale out worry-free, and we take care of it for you.
And I just have to touch on this in chat. Vlad had mentioned, it's Windows can be fun, right? There's some terrifying stories about using wine to run. Like I know this, and it just really, this makes life so much easier for administrators. Like we don't have to configure the underlying host. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And by eliminating that, I'm telling you, I think there's going to be so many more folks you're going to see that are familiar and, that use Linux primarily, but they have Windows workloads they need to support. This is going to make their life so much easier to onboard Windows workloads. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Nothing to be sorry. And now create the service. So let's see the results, right? So I'm creating a new service within an existing load balancer. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna access the existing service to see the result, right? So click view service. Let me just come back to the main page, and I have two services. One I'm just creating right now, right? So the desired is two, not running yet, it's launching, and this is the one running my tasks I already provisioned, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just access through my network load balancer. And this is an example of a task, a Windows task on Fargate, which I changed the index, but it says, hey, AWS Fargate for Windows. So this is a IaaS web service running behind the scenes, offering this great index HTML running on Fargate. So no more EC2 Windows to manage.
Woohoo!
But it's not the end. Now there is more.
Yes.
Let's see about metrics. Metrics is very important, right? I need to understand the behaviors and patterns of my application, especially when you are planning to containerize your Windows applications that you use to run on virtual machines. So what's the behavior now running as a container? So let's take a look. One of the beauties here is that we have integration with containering sites, right? So when you create your Fargate cluster, you can just select, hey, integrate with containing sites. And let's take a look what metrics we have out of the box. All right. So we can see metrics for the cluster level, the task level, and service level, right? So like here is an example. Let me just get this cluster right here that has more data to share because I'm running for some days, right? So this is the ECS cluster level metrics. So all the services and Windows Fargate tasks running in the cluster. So this is the behavior, this is the pattern of CPU, memory, network utilization, right? But also, I can take a look on the ECS service level for my cluster here. And let me just put more. I can select between different time frames, right? So let me just loading this one here.
And think about this, from again, I keep talking about it from a management perspective. What do I manage versus what does AWS manage? So we're not managing the underlying host. We're not configuring logging. So logging, and Marcio, please, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but logging is not super easy and straightforward in the Windows world. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
So that's something we just get to avoid here. Again, I'm not managing that. I don't have to do any configuration, CloudWatch logs out of the box. I'm good. Metrics. This is another huge, steep learning curve for folks who are especially if you're new to the containers world, trying to figure out how to aggregate these metrics and ship them. This is not just cookie cutter easy. But with Fargate, with Container Insights, with CloudWatch Logs, all of these integrations that come with the service, it is cookie cutter easy, you know?
Yep.
So just really, really important to highlight these things because, again, you know, sometimes when we're in the weeds here and we're working through this stuff and we do this day to day, we get used to these things. But all of a sudden, when I can offload those and they're not on my plate anymore, it's almost like it's like a breath of fresh air. I can focus on new things and focus on other areas to help improve the business, my developers, whatever that is.
Yeah, correct. And I also like the container insights and the way we are seeing those metrics. It's great for a lot of examples like cost optimization, right? So you are running your Windows application of 4 vCPUs, 80 gigabytes of RAM. Most of these resources is only the Windows OS for the Windows OS plus your app. And right now we are just focused on the app. So as you can see, like we can select between 1 vCPU and 2 gigabytes of memory to run your app, right? Because it's a container, doesn't need the all holy CPU and memory for the underlying host here anymore, right? Plus all third-party tools, like a lot of other agents. So you can see here on the ECS service level, all the services I have on my cluster and which amount of CPU, memory, network utilization. So you can learn from the behavior. Okay, right now, my application running as a container on Fargate, this is the new behavior. This is the pattern. So I can adjust my task, CPU, and memory as I need and launch a new one, right? And you can also take a look on the ECS task level, right?
And this speaks to the not only just the monitoring component, right? Seeing how your tasks are performing, but to that cost optimization piece to see if you're over allocating, right? You're over provisioning resources. Then this is a great way to learn the patterns of your applications and then scale in to save money.
Correct. So this is a great point. Let's say this is an example. As a developer, to feel more comfortable, I want to containerize my Windows container, and I'm going to use AWS Fargate with 4 vCPUs and 80 gigabytes of memory because I want just to be more comfortable and for this first run to match exactly what I have on-prem. Now, with that, I can look at those insights and change the amount of resources that my application really needs, and then I'm going to have a cost optimization as well. Right? Okay, so this is the end of my demonstration.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcio. First of all, you know, someone had reached out in chat saying you're helping them to design their container strategy. Great to see a familiar face. Marcio's awesome. You're definitely in good hands. So that's a good one.
Thank you.
So there were some other questions that came in. You know, Brent pointed out a really interesting, you know, idea here is one thing I forgot to mention was, you know, when you're running your own underlying hosts, you got to think about running antivirus software, right? Like this is a whole other aspect, you know, something you need to think about. Whereas now you don't have to think about securing the host, you know, virus protection in there. But it does bring up the question of, you know, when I'm thinking of running my Windows containers in Fargate, I guess, you know, do I need to have some sort of antivirus installed? Probably not, right? How do I think about securing my Fargate tasks? And whoever wants to take that, Marcio, Sandeep, whoever.
Sure.
I can go ahead, Sandeep, please.
Go ahead, Marcio. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I think the way we think applications running containers, it's different when running a full virtual machine, right? So first, containers are immutable. So like there is no need to have antivirus right there. In most of the case, you have antivirus to protect your whole OS, plus like not the application itself, but the whole OS, right? So it changes. The way you see security for containers is different. You see security when running as a virtual machine, right? So when running Fargate, kind of, you don't need to have more antivirus on the on the container level or endpoint protection. But not only that, it's pretty common, Adam, when you are running a Windows virtual machine, you have those tools for security, plus a lot of tools for inventory your license, all those kind of stuff that adds more management, right? So you can end up having more than 5, 10 agents on a Windows Server host just to manage your OS level, to identify what you have installed and have control of those things, which is out of the boundary of the application. So when you're thinking about running an application on Fargate, it's like there is no more this OS piece to thinking about. All those heavy lift stuff happening right here, like agents plus agents, doesn't need anymore. It's only about my application, right? So this is a
Just
great
to
benefit.
add on the top of that, so antivirus is just like a one layer of security, but on the
Yeah,
top of that, like AWS offers a wide range of security for the application and the instance that is actually running. That's a really great thing to look into.
yeah,
That's a great point. I mean, you really, it's again, we're shifting the focus here, right? So once we offload the management of the OS, that's something now, as Brent was saying here in the chat. By the way, hey Brent, good to see you. This is a checkbox when you're being audited. This is fully managed by AWS. I'm not managing that host. This is out of my scope. So I think you're gaining just from that aspect alone. You gain a ton. So there was a question about CoPilot, and so Sandeep, tell me, are we going to be working with CoPilot?
Yep. So we are doing that Copilot as part of this initial release. Like you'll see that soon.
Yep.
You should come see, try it out today, Brent. It's going to release pretty soon. We're waiting for some launch activities to finish, but you should have it handy. And we will have some marketing material as well to talk about that in a blog.
And so if you're not familiar with CoPilot, CoPilot is a CLI that you can use to deploy your containerized workloads on AWS. The beautiful thing about AWS CoPilot is it is an opinionated tool that has good practices built in. So, and it offers a guided experience. So if you are a Windows expert, but you are, let's say, new to the container space, or you're new to the orchestration space specifically, containers, but orchestrators, this is a beast you just don't want to tackle yet. Look at the AWS CoPilot CLI. The guided experience is going to give you all of this, for the most part, this really cool stuff that Marcio showed you. And all you have to do is just follow the guided experience from the command line, and it builds everything on your behalf. So keep an eye on that. And just to talk about the launch, so we are launching it today, this feature. So it's being launched as we speak. So expect to see blogs coming out today through tomorrow, and our what's new post and all that good stuff. It'll be coming out in the next few hours. So just keep an eye out for that.
Right. And to all the goodness, improving the developer productivity, like we said, you get to now focus on the app, not the infra. And also with Copilot, even taking it further and not having to worry about even managing the orchestration piece, right? We sort of make it super easy for you. So bringing the developer productivity to the best, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, it really is a game changer. So I think I want to make sure I don't miss any questions here, because there was a really good conversation. And again, Marcio, you are a crowd favorite. I just want to let you know. But that was a really great demo. And this is a really good point. Vlad says, with Copilot, devs can do a proof of concept in like 30 minutes with zero experience. Yeah. And it's true. I just want to add to that, because I think sometimes when we have a tool that's so easy and opinionated, we think, I get to the POC and I stop there. But Copilot is well beyond a tool for just deploying POCs. This is a tool that you can use to deploy production workloads and be up and running with insight into those production workloads right away. Like it's the day two stuff when you talk about logging, metrics, monitoring, all built into the command line. So that insight, all that you need, it's there on day one. So just wanted to share that. There was one other question. Maybe Sandeep, you can touch on this. Capacity providers. How does Windows Fargate fit into the capacity providers discussion here?
So basically, like we have the Fargate currently. This is just a start of the Fargate Windows feature, but going forward, what we are working on currently is like adding a lot of features into the capacitor providers and as well as the GMSA, the FSX. So a lot of features are going to add, and this is just a start that we are having for the Windows Fargate.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think at this point we've touched on a ton. I think we can probably wrap this up. I really want to thank, Marcio, thank you so much for demoing and showing us how this feature works. Saloni, Sandeep, as always, y'all are awesome, building fantastic products and services. I love Fargate. Frankly, like if I ever go back to the world where I have to build and manage stuff, it's going to be Fargate only. Like I'm not doing it. I'm not managing any EC2 on my own. So
yeah. So on the Spot, I think someone asked specifically about the Spot. So I just wanted to add something there. Like we are basically right now it's only on EC2, but we are evaluating the Spot as well, and you'll see that pretty soon as well. Fargate supporting on Spot depends all on the customer demand, and yes, we are on that.
Yes, please put your requests on the GitHub roadmap if something is blocking you or something that you need to actually run your application and is not available today. This is what we want to hear from you. So to Sandeep's points, please let us know what really you want us to build, and we will follow the customer demand.
Perfect. And that's the roadmap. So let me just post that again. Go to the containers roadmap, and let us know what you're looking for, what you like. If you see a feature that is something you want to see implemented, give it a thumbs up, +1. Let us know your use case too. That always helps, right? The more we know, the better we can build to support what y'all are looking for. So that's it. I want to thank everybody again. Keep an eye out there. We're going to have these blogs posted very soon. I'm going to do a shameless plug. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm doing it. Don't hate me. But you can follow me on Twitter. Saloni has a Twitter as well. Follow us on Twitter. We'll be posting the blogs. And so keep an eye for the launch blog for this, and then CoPilot as well coming very soon. So thank you, everybody. Happy deploying, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Adam, for being awesome and having us here.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, everyone.